Hello guys, traditional video from my car as every Saturday. Quite often I get a question about plan A or plan B. What should I do? What would you advise? For example, how should I structure the database? Should I use polymorphic relationships or has many belongs to many? Should I use JSON fields or not? Should I use repository pattern or services? Should I use PHP unit or PEST? Should I use inertia or livewire? And quite often these are the questions and the decisions that come up in the very beginning of the project, kind of architectural decisions, which are really important for the future of the project. That's why the developer is hesitating to choose one or another, because the decision is really important. And if it goes wrong, it would be pretty expensive to change. So to change the fundamental database structure or to change livewire to inertia, that would be quite a lot of work. But typically, if the question comes to me, I cannot really answer the question for those people because it's very individual. The situation is very individual. And the answer depends mostly on two things. First, their team. So what is the preference of their team? So what experience do they have in livewire versus inertia, for example, or some other tools? So it's about their team, their decision. And also, what would they do with those features after they have been created? So for example, use JSON fields or relations in the database. What would be the queries afterwards to get the data? Do they involve complex relationships? Then JSON is not the good solution. So generally, if you have some kind of crossroad about very important decision architectural, you should envision what would happen with the project or with that feature down the line in the future, in half a year or a year. How would you use that? Who would use that feature? What would change in the future potentially if the project grows? What if the database consists of hundreds of thousands of records in the future? And my approach would be to kind of simulate both options and envision what would happen in each of them. And sometimes simulate is worth doing even in real life, not only in your thoughts or on paper. Actually try to create mini small MVP project in both options. Luckily, Laravel allows you to do very rapid development. So sometimes it's worth to spend a day or two or three trying to simulate both, for example, different database structures or different livewire versus inertia. And then along the way, you will kind of see the correct decision for the future. And you could argue that you don't have the day or two or three to evaluate the decision without any results. But actually playing around with architecture may be really beneficial. And if you don't do that in the very beginning, then it would be really expensive, as I said, to change the decision if it appears down the road that it's a wrong decision. But on the other hand, the decision may be expensive to change, but may be inevitable. You may be wrong, or maybe something changes in the project. Maybe the client changes their mind or something specific and very fundamental. So sometimes it is inevitable to make a big refactoring, big changes, architectural changes, and it is expensive, but it's not impossible. Very few decisions, in fact, in IT or generally even in life are not undoable or redoable or changeable. So sometimes, of course, depending on the situation, but sometimes it's worth just diving in, creating stuff, and then refactor along the way when you see that it needs to be refactoring. Because there's another thing called premature optimization, so I'm not a fan of that. I'm a fan of diving in, actually creating stuff, and then going in iterations along the way. So these are pretty random thoughts, but my overall message is simulate the option A and option B and try to envision what would happen when you choose one or another path. You can simulate it in your mind, just theoretically, or try to create both, or even hire someone or ask some colleagues to create A version and B version, and then you compare and then make the decision. What do you think about that? Have you ever encountered the situation when you've chosen the wrong path from architectural point of view and had to refactor quite a lot? Share your pain and stories in the comments. That's it for now, and see you guys in other videos.